Quick note to start this video on, I was really happy about the response I got from viewers regarding the sponsorship I got from NordVPN in the main Sonic Unleashed review. People were actually happy for me, when at best I was expecting neutrality, and at worst I was expecting people to think it signaled in that channel going downhill or something insane like that. Never expected to see all the comments about the promotion being in support. Having said that, I have decided to go forward and do something else in the hopes of taking my channel to the next level. I opened up a Patreon. You all know how this works, right? Fans donate to creators they like and get perks in return. In my case, the Patreon is very much under construction, and I'm certainly open to suggestions to make it more worthwhile, but at the starting point, I'm offering 1 day early access to videos, and I'm opening a Patreon-exclusive Discord server, where if you're a Tier 2 patron, you get to participate in a monthly Q&A with me, although I'm considering bumping that up to weekly. You can find more about it in the link I'm putting in the description. If you don't think you can donate, that's perfectly fine. I'm just opening this up as a potential avenue to make sure YouTube is a more viable long-term project for me. Having said that, let's dive in. The last video I did was on the main version of Sonic Unleashed, developed by Sonic Team for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. I was expecting comments about it, and at the end of that video, I said that people who didn't finish the video before commenting on it were most certainly going to ask about it. My suspicion was proven correct. Credit to everyone who commented about the Wii version after hearing me say it was the next video. You get the prize of being someone who finishes a video before commenting on it. Now anyway, Sonic Unleashed is in an interesting spot. Well, most Sonic games were. But in this context, I mean that by 2008, it was pretty clear that any game intended to take full advantage of next-generation hardware was just not coming to the Nintendo Wii. So if you wanted a big game to be released on what was, in the early days of the 7th generation, the most popular console, you'd have to make a new game. I feel like this isn't as much of a thing nowadays. Back in the 2000s, I think the same name, different game phenomenon was at a high. I mean, whoa, it's LEGO Star Wars, an action platform game based on the prequels, and it's coming to Game Boy Advance? I gotta get that game. Oh, this isn't the same game as on the commercial. That sort of effect. Sega could have just ignored the Wii and make a new game, however that strategy is ignoring a big market for kids games, and like I said last time, the sales of Secret Rings could not be denied. To fill the gap, Dimps was brought in to develop a brand new game based on the Sonic Unleashed concept for the Wii. You know, boosting stages and brawling night stages. Dimps being the company Sega has, thus far, gotten great results out of. I mean, they made the successful Sonic Advance trilogy on the Game Boy Advance, and were at this point doing the also successful Sonic Rush titles on the Nintendo DS. So who better to make a version of Sonic Unleashed just for the Wii? Well, it wasn't just on the Wii. The most popular console of the early 2000s, and the greatest game console of all time, like let's not kid ourselves, was the PlayStation 2. In the late 2000s, it was still somewhat profitable to release your game on the PlayStation 2, even with a PlayStation 3 version out already. It's not like the jump between the 7th and 8th generations where a shitty version of MGS5 would be dumped on PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 2 version of Sonic Unleashed was a downport of the Wii version, not the PS3 one, which was a port from the Xbox 360 version. The PS2 version was actually my first exposure to this secondary version of Sonic Unleashed, as I got the 360 version when it came out, but the PS2 version with gift money I had in 2009. Alongside this large, Big Chill figure from Ben 10 Alien Force, but we're talking about Sonic here. I had an easier time beating the PS2 version of Unleashed than I did the Xbox 360 version, and that's partly because the next-gen version was harder, and also because of its pacing problems that I went into detail on in the last video. Besides that, though, I haven't touched this port of Sonic Unleashed in years. I don't even own the PS2 port anymore. I just picked up the Wii version a couple years back and never got around to playing it until now. They're basically the same thing, although if you watched Exo's video, you'd know that there were dithers everywhere. Yeah, the biggest difference is that the PS2 one looks terrible, so let's just play it on the Wii. I'm intending for this to be a pretty short video. I've already reviewed Sonic Unleashed in full, as in the story, the world, the gameplay in depth, so this video will just be about what stood out to me when having played a crap ton of the HD version of Sonic Unleashed. I could have made this a segment of the Unleashed video, but I didn't want to divert focus away from the main topic to this game for like 5 minutes when it could have just been its own video. I think the game is visually pleasing enough. I don't think this game belongs anywhere near the conversation for the best looking Wii game, but I do think it looks nice enough. Each area looking visually distinct from one another, textures are okay. Sonic himself looking shinier than ever before in this one, but the Werehog's textures just looking really flat. When it comes to graphics and textures, I'm not too hard to please, at least I don't think I am anyway. The game runs at a solid 30 FPS, but I did also give the game a shot on Dolphin, and you can bump it up to 60 FPS for that improved gameplay experience. Although I get the feeling that some of these animations weren't meant for 60 FPS. It runs and looks fine, but what suffers the most when it comes to the presentation of this version of Sonic Unleashed would be the cutscenes. All the cutscenes in the Wii Unleashed are compressed video files of the cutscenes from the Xbox 360 version, and it looks about as bad as you would expect. Audio is fine, but the video just looks so pixelated. The cutscenes are also unskippable on your first playthrough, which meant I had to sit through them all in this terrible quality. Although, they might have been unskippable on 360, I just didn't notice since obviously I would watch the cutscenes for my main review playthrough. Not like I would mind watching these scenes normally, it's just the compression on the Wii looks terrible. Speaking of pixels, I did play a couple hours of it on an actual Wii and tried using point scaling and OBS with my OSSC. Not sure if my settings aren't good on OBS, or I really need a new capture card because you can't use the OSSC with the Elgato unless you attach the XRGB Mini as a bypass, or whatever it may be, but this footage looked pixelated like I wanted it to, but also blurry as hell. So this is the first video I've done in 1440p to clean it up a little bit. Also sorry for the technobabble nonsense, just figured I'd get that info out there. Back to the game. For the opening cutscene, I noticed something pretty weird about it right away. The HD version presents it letterboxed for cinematic purposes. At first, I thought the Wii version just stretched the tops and bottoms out to the edge of the screen. When doing some research, I found this was originally a full screen image, just cropped down to letterboxed. That is something I most certainly didn't see coming. When getting into the gameplay of the Wii version, you can see how it was cut down in many ways, starting with how two whole areas got cut: Savannah Citadel and Skyscraper Scamper. Empire City being gone is fair enough, I suppose, because there were no cutscenes that took place there at all and no Gaia Temple, so it was basically pointless. But Savannah Citadel held the first Gaia Temple, and we cut the stages out and left the Egg Beetle boss fight to make sure the cutscenes still make sense. The hub worlds from the HD version are also completely cut. Instead, we have this point-and-click menu that you use to talk to people and get to the Gaia Gates, which allow players to fully listen to the Gaia Gate music that was only audible in one cutscene in the other version. In these mini-hub worlds, you can use Sun and Moon medals to unlock extra stages and puzzles that grant you extra perma-lives. In this game, the player has a default life count. When you get a game over, you just start back at that. Kind of obvious, I know, but the new mechanic is that you raise your default life count. Think of the EX tank from Mega Man X4 in this instance. Back to hub worlds. Since some gameplay took place here that related to the story, I think it's kind of funny to see the ways they went about going around it. Like how Savannah Citadel Night isn't in the game, so to go around that, the gang just finds a hole in the ground, insert Professor Pickle rescue cutscene. Or when the town of Spagonia just goes crazy at night, we just get this Injustice Gods Among Us minigame instead of a playable fight. The pacing still suffers in this version because you still have to backtrack to Pickle's lab for new stages, but on the plus side, you no longer need to collect Sun and Moon medals to play new levels. Those unlock bonus stages like collecting rings or not touching ice or whatever stage-specific thing they have. With you not even physically needed to collect any Sun or Moon medals at all, you just get rewarded with more Sun and Moon medals for performing well on stages. This being the main reason I beat the PS2 version first as a kid. Although the opening of this version drags quite a bit by forcing players through individual tutorial missions for each of the core mechanics with loading screens in between each one. But with all that said, we can finally look at the gameplay of the Wii version. For the day stages, I thought it was really interesting to play. Despite coming out at the same time as the HD version, the boost gameplay on the Wii felt like a prototype for what would come in the HD version. Dimps developed Sonic Rush, like I said, and that created the boost gameplay, so it was weird of them to reinvent how it worked for 3D. But that does give me something to talk about. You fill the boost gauge with rings collected like the HD version, however, if you collect 30, 60, and 90 rings, you can extend the boost gauge for the rest of the stage, assuming you don't get hit. Here, the boost is like a player-activated dash pad. You get a short burst of speed, so now figuring out the right time to boost is important, or else you'll just slam into walls. In this version, I felt that the speed control methods, the quick step, and the drift functioned far more reliably than they did on the HD version, which was nice, but on the whole, I didn't like how Sonic handled here. Mainly because it felt like he could barely run in a straight line without bopping left and right constantly. Colors had this problem as well, but this being a little worse. But that did not deter me from having fun with these stages, because what is here is really well designed. Dimps often gets a lot of flack for their 2D Sonic stages being shallow attempts at recreating what the Genesis games were like, but as far as 3D Sonic is concerned, I think these day stages are well made. Differing pathways was an important element to the gameplay of HD Unleashed, but for the Wii version, I'd say this aspect was a lot more accessible, as different pathways being marked by something totally obvious like a homing attack chain or grind rails, still taking a lot of time off your run, making the difference between an S and an A. In this sense, the design of Wii Day stages kind of feels like a bridge between how the Adventure era games played and were designed and how the Boost games were designed, still providing thrills in their own right like grinding on the water of Dragon Road or running the sides of buildings in Rooftop Run. I'd be curious to see how these levels played with better controls because I love these level layouts, but like I said, the actual control of Daytime Sonic felt pretty awkward. I have seen a bunch of mods for these stages in Sonic Generations on YouTube, but I could not find any for download on the internet, so I can't comment on that, but I do think Generations mechanics of these open-ended and thrilling stage designs are a match made in heaven. On the other side of the coin, there's the Werehog Style. I should start by saying that the Wii version had multiple styles of controls to work with. The Wii Remote and Nunchuck, the Classic controller, and the GameCube controller. I used my GameCube controller, and to be fair, they had to design a combat system that could easily transfer between these three control methods, one of them being the Wii Remote and its motion mash. Let's be clear, I was not doing that. So I just used the GameCube, like I said. I think the day stages of Unleashed on Wii are well worth playing, but I thought the Werehog was pretty bad on the Wii. Here, you press the L button to swipe left and the R button to swipe right. You switch between the two to chain combos and use the Werehog's stretchy arms to platform, and that's about as complex as it gets. The HD version was this really based action game, but here on the Wii, it just feels like a really boring brawler. The shield gauge is missing, instead blocking just makes you immune unless the attack comes from a big guy. The health and devil trigger gauges upgrade with EXP that drops from enemies in completed stages, and that's also how you unlock new combos like the basic punch attack or the thunderclap. And what combos are there from the console version are these really slow and boring alternatives. But hey, Wii Werehog does have one thing in common with one of those spectacle fighter games. In Devil May Cry 2, alternative combos from Dante and Lucia's main combos were locked behind the devil trigger. Like, normally Dante's 3-hit combo is just that, but when in DT, Dante will stab forward as his second attack and then slam on the ground as the third. With the electricity heart equipped, Dante will then send some sparks flying on the ground when doing that. Wii Werehog does have some extra combos that are activated with the same button commands as the regular ones, and the function will be different in Unleashed mode. So yeah, there's the DMC inspiration. With all that said, I just found fighting as the Werehog really boring in the Wii version, and the spectacle/platforming was fine, but I just thought the delay between pressing the grab ledge button and Sonic doing it was too great, and that led to a lot of unfair deaths. And if you pick something up, you have to hold the grab button until pressing the throw button, or else you just drop it. Oh, the humanity. The Werehog stages were split into 3, later 4 and 5 acts each, probably to account for how nobody really wants to play these stages, and the perma-life game over system would lead to a lot of frustrated players that had to redo big chunks of the Werehog stages upon getting a game over. While playing the Wii version, I just thought that the Werehog completely dragged the game down since it was boring and repetitive, which is something you could easily say about the HD version. I just didn't feel that way myself. I was right alongside Jason Griffith with each of my deaths. Seriously though, I heard he was like sick or something when doing this game and had to produce this. Yikes. But to look at something the Wii version did do that made the endgame more palatable for many would be how they cut Eggman Land into one day stage and several night stages as opposed to the gauntlet from the console version. Don't really mind it either way, but I can say that the Wii version of the Egg Dragoon fight was made far easier than on console, but the game makes up for it with the final boss. The final battle in the HD version was drawn out and not satisfying to play. Here, you could critique the game for the final boss being a lot quicker, like goes by really fast quick, but I think you get a better designed final battle out of it. As the Gaia Colossus, you dodge left when Dark Gaia swipes left, same for right, and dodge back when he uses both claws. You punch left and right after dodging, and that's all he wrote. But it's pretty satisfying to land a critical hit here. You also only play as Chip once instead of 3 times. You then play as Sonic 3 times like the console version, ending with Super Sonic vs. Perfect Dark Gaia, where you have to collect rings to fill the boost gauge, and then blast into each of Dark Gaia's eyes, ending the fight. Simple and effective. And that's basically all I can really say on the Wii version of Unleashed. Playing it again for this video, I can tell you I probably won't be coming back to this much, if at all. However, I did think it was an interesting experience when I did play it. If only because of the fact that over 1 million people played this back in 2008. A lot of them probably not playing the HD version at all. So when people talk about Sonic Unleashed nowadays, it's the HD version used as the default because that's the one Sonic Team made. It must be weird for people who have nostalgia for this version since it's often slept on. Will probably stay that way because, you know, when people talk about wanting Unleashed on PC or something like that, it's just the version that includes hub worlds and uncompressed cutscenes, boost gameplay like Generations, and the fully realized Werehog stages. I think Unleashed on PS2 and Wii was an interesting experience because of it being a completely different take on the same ideas that had just as much of an audience as the Sonic Team version. And that much, I think, is valid. If you prefer the Wii version, I think that's cool. There are reasons to prefer it, like its more accessible day stages and not having hub worlds could be viewed as a positive, and there's no gatekeeping medal collection shit like the other version. It's just not for me since I've already played so much of the other one. Now, having said that, I'm actually pretty glad it got its own video, if only because this segment would have made the Unleashed video like 15 minutes longer, and I already felt like it took me forever to get that video done. So I hope you enjoyed this quick look at Wii Unleashed and look forward to the Sonic and the Black Knight video, which is coming right up next. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.